All right. Hello. Good morning. So yeah, let's try this again. Yesterday I was a bit out of it. Yeah, I had to take the day off. Just I don't know. I think it's just stressful. Becoming a parent the second time. And also like reading the news and stuff. Like the world is a very different place. I remember when our daughter was born, like 1 month after Trump got elected, and it was like, oh my god, what the hell is happening? Yeah, and I have a feeling the same is going to happen this time as well, which is like, yeah, crazy stuff. Anyways, so yeah, I decided to not read the news until the new baby is born, because it just stresses the hell out of me. So we'll just focus on doing some code instead. Anyways, let's see. We were going to model our application in this new state management thing I've been working on. And what this helps us to do is think about separation of concerns. And the thing is, with Overmind, you kind of get some hooks for separating, because you don't define state and like you have very clear concepts of this is where you define your state, this is where you define your application logic, and this is where you define the interface between the outside world and your application logic, being effects, which is one of the goals of Overmind, to kind of just make it natural to do these separations, because separation of concerns is really important. But the thing is, when we now use classes instead, we have the benefit of defining logic and state together, but it's more difficult to do the separation of concerns, because you don't have these clear bounds of effects and application logic and so on. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at our API, which is going to be our interface between Firebase and our application logic, because we don't want Firebase to be part of our application logic at all. We want to rather expose a set of methods that makes sense for our application. And I was messing around with asynchronously loading Firebase and stuff, and I reflected a little bit on it, and I think we're just going to do this instead. Let's see. So we have private Firebase instance, which is a promise of Firebase. Because what we want to do, we want to asynchronously load Firebase. And when this class is created, we want to say this Firebase equals await import Firebase. So this is something, not await, but import Firebase. Because the constructor can't be async, but we really want to kind of prepare Firebase here. And then, oh yeah, I didn't think about this. Let's see. Then, well, I guess we can, yeah, let's do this instead. Sorry, private load Firebase. And this can be async. Get Firebase. That's a better term. So we're going to say this get Firebase, and this is going to, this can be async, and it can say await, Firebase await import, and then we'll initialize the app, and then we'll actually return Firebase like this. This is what we want to do. Oops. So that when we create this class, we will we add a layer of complexity here by asynchronously loading the Firebase library. But the reason we want to do that is because we want our application to load up as fast as possible and show some kind of UI to the user. Now, the interesting thing about this strategy is that we don't have we're not waiting for Firebase to load, right? So what we do instead is that we are going to make everything async, which basically everything is. So, and the reason it's async is because when we want to use Firebase now, we have to await this Firebase. Because this is a promise of Firebase being there at some point in time. So if, for example, we were to call onAuth changed first, it would actually wait until Firebase is actually ready before it starts running that logic. And we could have done this differently. But we're going to do this strategy for now, because I think that makes most sense. But we could have like we did before. We could kind of create like a getter and stuff, but I think this is more straightforward. Then we have our constructor there. I guess, yeah, I don't know. I haven't worked that much with classes. I don't have like a preference on the order of things. Oops, sorry. So maybe like properties, constructor, private methods, public methods. That's nice. Let's do that. Anyways, and then we have sign in and all this stuff, but we're actually not going to implement these things right now. We're just going to write down what we need, and then we're going to talk about it. So this user would be, I think we're rather going to pass in the UID there, user UID, and then it's going to give back a profile. So export iProfile. Oops, interface. So we're also going to, so these types represents data in these types represents data coming from the server. Yes, so we're going to say, let's see. Yeah, this is going to break for now. Oh, maybe we shouldn't go all the way. Okay, let's see. Should we create these methods? Let's see, how many are there? Yeah, there's quite a bit of them. Yeah, I think let's not do that. Let's just have sign in and sign out. Okay, but what we are going to do is that we're going to say that this is an action actually. And the reason we are saying it's an action, it's because we want to track their executions. Wow, what the hell happened here? Oh, there we go. Which basically adding that action makes those methods pop up in our UI, and the execution of those methods will actually be tracked. So we're not using action to like mutate state or anything. It's kind of like a debug decorator. Anyways, so we have an API here, and we also have this other browser API, which is basically this is iframe. Maybe we can add that as well. Let's see. Export class is iframe. What was the return? Yeah, and we don't need to track this really. Cool, but now we're kind of getting to the gist of things, because in our application we have something called like, what are we actually dealing with here? So in our application, we didn't think so strongly about creating concepts for different things. We reflected more what's in the actual database, and then we populated everything. So we kind of exposed the complexity. We didn't have, so one thing that Overmind doesn't have a concept for or a separation of is entities. So you kind of put, so for example here, we have, do we have a good example? So we have like profiles, for example. We just put that in there because we have profiles. And we have a user, and we have a profile, and we kind of just put it into the state. We don't create like some kind of entity concept. Because if you think about this application, the only thing you really need in terms of dealing with profiles and stuff is a family. It doesn't matter if it's like one person or there are multiple persons. There is a family here, and the family contains the UIDs of all the family members, their names, the UID of the family itself, if there is a family defined, and stuff like that. And then that, so that's one thing. So we don't have a concept of a family that holds, like we do have like a family type, but we don't have, where are we using that family type, by the way? I'm not sure if we're actually using it. Anyways, we don't put the concerns of the family inside the family. That's my point. And then, so that's kind of co-locating state that relates to this concept of a family. But then you also have, what about the logic related to a family? So for example, someone might leave the family during a session, and you want that to be updated. So you want to listen to changes to the family. And who's responsible for that? In Overmind, that would be something you did unrelated to the state, because that's the separation of concerns in Overmind. You have state, actions, and effects. But in this concept, you would actually put that responsibility on the family entity itself. So let's explore that. Let's have a class called family. And what we also want is, we're going to try a state machine. And that state machine is going to be our authentication state machine. It's going to deal with basically signing in and signing out, and it's going to deal with that stuff. So let's try that as well. Yes, maybe we can look at the family first. So our family, that family needs to have, let's see, it needs to be an observable. I'm not sure why it chooses MobX. It might be, it would probably have chosen reactive app if it was an actual NPM dependency. But anyways, this family is going to have a UID. It might have a UID. We don't know if it has one. And then there's going to be some profiles there. And these profiles are as a UID, like a user. Well, I guess it's a profile UID. And then we have like the name of the person on there, and we can instantiate this, I guess. Or let's don't instantiate anything. So that's what that family has. And then the family also has like an owner. Like one of these profiles is the owner. And we could say that's also an observable. That's something that could actually change. So we can say owner UID is a string. Now, one thing about this is that what we've chosen to do now is that no matter if you're alone and don't really have a family entity in the database, we still create a family entity on the client, but it won't have a UID because it don't really have one. But you'll become the owner and you will become the only profile in that family. Now, the interesting thing is what we've opened up for now is to actually not only give this family entity access to define state, but also define logic. And basically, one big question that I haven't really thought about is, in some frameworks, for example, Backbone, you have the concept of a model. So model and entity, that's the same concept in my head. In Backbone, you actually give the model the ability to load its own data and save its own data. And we could do the same here if we wanted to. But I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure if this should be like more of a straightforward thing or yeah. Let's try first not allowing it to deal with its own, like not like you create a family by giving it the UID and the profiles and the owner UID. That's how you create a family. We could rather say you create a family by just giving it UID, and then it would itself figure out who the profiles are and who's the owner and everything by grabbing it in the database. But yeah, anyways, we're not going to do that. So we're going to say, okay, so this family might have I guess we have to do that last then. It needs some profiles. So maybe we should export this needs to be a T, what's it called? T profiles. Yeah, so the thing is, like as a programmer, doing all this work, export type, of thinking about separation of concerns. I think that is what, like being a junior developer and a senior developer, I don't like those terms, but like related to hiring and stuff, it has kind of forced me to think about how do I think about them, like how do they differ? And one very concrete thing is, I think a senior developer thinks a lot about separation of concerns. They spend a lot of time planning out their implementation and try to give good concepts that's more easily to build upon. And then you have like some developers go kind of way too far with it, where they split up everything. They're kind of prematurely splitting up everything to kind of make it more scalable, but it becomes very hard to reason about it. So like a good senior developer is able to create separation of concerns, but still keep it readable and not being prematurely splitting stuff up. While a junior developer has a tendency to go more straight at it, as they should do. That's right, because it has a cost to do all this planning and consider all this stuff. But it just needs, you require a lot of experience to kind of find that balance of the cost benefit of that. Anyways, so let's say, so we're just trying out one approach here. And then we might have UID. I don't like this. I don't like this at all. Yeah, I'm not sure if I like this. We're giving it way too much responsibility on the outside. Oh, wait, we should... Yeah, maybe it should be responsible for loading itself. Like either that or you would actually get... Yeah. Wow, this was surprisingly... I'm not used to thinking about this stuff. Or thinking in this matter. I'm not sure what's the best there. I think maybe the best would actually be to... So you have a family. So these are like the types of the data coming from the server, where you do have owner UID. You do have profiles. Isn't that how we store this stuff? Firebase. Can't remember. Oh, do I have? Oh, sorry, Cloud Firestore. Let's see. No, I don't think we have any families there. No. Let's see. Here we have some families. Yes, we have profile UIDs, which is just an array, and owner UID. Okay. Profile UIDs, which is a string of UIDs. We have owner UID, and that's it. So this is how a family looks like coming from the server. So what we could say is, okay, so we create a new family. And this is the difficult part, because we kind of, what do we want to do here? Either we want to load the family from the outside, and then with the constructor, we will instantiate that family. So we could say data and then family. So what you would have here are like DTOs or DTO. Data transfer object. I know that stuff. Like I never really use these terms. So what you say, if you want to create a family, you have to give me some data from the server, which would be like an owner UID. Yeah, so we could actually include the UID here. Yeah, I think this is better. So what we do here is that what we get is UID, profiles, owner UID. Now, the thing is, the problem is that we don't necessarily have a family. That's the problem. And this is what's confusing me. Because here we're saying that we have a UID, but we don't necessarily have a UID there. If you're just one person, like you're just trying out the app. And then you could say, yeah, maybe we can just pass a fake UID. Yeah, maybe that's okay. Maybe that's perfectly okay. Yeah, let's just try that. Okay, so we're trying this approach where we say this UID equals UID. So it isn't actually, it's always there, but we might give it like a fake UID. Though adding that fake UID actually determines if you are in a family or not. Wow, this was surprisingly difficult to reason about. I'm not really selling this approach at all, am I? But I think it's because my head is stuck in... yeah, because I actually finished my Rust book. And Rust also has like kind of co-locating state and state and logic, and then you're given like constantly in the book you're giving this problem, and then you kind of reason, okay, this is how I would model it, and then they give you an answer. Like of course there are multiple answers, but they give you an answer, and then it's like, of course I should have done it that way. But you're like getting into the way of reasoning about this is really difficult to do. It's much easier to reason about, okay, this is the state I have, this is how I want to manipulate that state. Don't like model them together, because it's kind of like it just increases the number of possibilities. Like it feels exponential. Just as we see here, like, okay, so I need to like have some kind of entity representing a family, but you don't necessarily have a family. Should we then fake that you're in a family? But if we fake that you're in a family, we're saying that you're in a family. but you're not in a family? Or should we model it as, okay, you can either have a single profile, and that profile can have a family? Yeah, maybe that's the way we should do it. So everybody has a profile when they load, and that profile might have a family attached to it. Yeah, maybe that's the way to do it. Maybe that's the way to do it. Let's try that instead. Okay, so let's delete this family. Delete, and currently I haven't implemented proper deleting of these classes yet. I have to do that. That should be the first on my list, I guess. And let's rather think about that you have a profile. And in this profile, you will always have, let's do observable. You always have a UID, and you always have, like you might have a family. And that, let's give it an interface. And that family always has a UID. It always has profiles. UID string, name string, and it always has an owner UID. Okay. So you might have a family. And then you have a name on your thing. Yes, and then it's the question, how do we actually instantiate this? So we can instantiate by giving it a profile, iProfile DTO, and an optional family. Didn't I have an iFamily DTO? Thought I had. Oops. Cool. So the way we instantiate this is that we say this UID equals profile. We haven't modeled that. So a profile has a UID, it has a name. What else do we have in the profile? I think we just have a name. Yeah, or optionally a family UID. But that we don't, well, it's there. Okay, it's a profile UID, and this.name equals profile.name. And then this.family equals I guess family. Maybe they aren't the same. Oh, it's called profile UIDs, sorry. Yeah, I guess we don't need this one. They happen to be the same. Okay, so now we have modeled our profile, and that profile might have a family. And I guess we have to make, I'm not sure if it actually makes this stuff observable. We'll figure that out. And then the question is, what we're doing now is that we are going to, when we authenticate, we're going to download the profile. And if that profile has a family UID, we'll download the family as well. And then we pass that into a profile, these two things. And this stuff creates the profile. And then the thing is, we want to make sure that this stuff keeps up to date. So we should have like this, subscribe to changes, for example. So we'll have private subscribe to changes, And then we want to ensure that all this stuff stays up to date. So if you change your name, we need to update this thing. If the family changes, we need to update this thing. And this is where I wanted to get at. What we're able to do now, since we have this concept of a class, is that it's much easier for us to deal with events, for example. So we would say, where should we have these? I guess here, private. So let's dispose profile subscription, or should we call it subscription? Yeah, let's see what it is first. So do we have anything? Where are our effects? Here they are. Did we have dispose? Yeah, we had like stream profile. What does this on snapshot? It returns a query. Oh, that's a snapshot. On snapshot, blah, 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 snapshot. Doesn't it state what it returns? On next. Oh yeah, it's just a function. Yeah. Where was I? Yeah. I guess we can rather say this.dispose profile subscription equals let's see. First of all, we'll go in and we'll give it the API. And then with the API, oh, that's interesting. It's supposed to keep the line breaks here. That's interesting. I'll need to fix that. Anyways, so this dispose profile subscription would then be this API on profile changed. This dot update profile. And this would get kind of like let's see, profile, profile DTO. Yes. Yeah, it's really interesting. Like, yeah, it's very interesting how straightforward we do model our clients. Like, and this isn't related to Overmind. This is the same in Redux. Like, you have some state over here, you have some things over there. They don't have any concept of where you deal with your effects. You typically just import them directly into your thunks. And they don't have like this co-locating of state and logic, which makes things a lot more straightforward. Or am I just very, very used to model stuff that way? That's the question. Yeah, because what we also need to do here now, we need to have like a disposer, so that this dispose profile, so we need to dispose of everything that we set up here. So here we would say this dot, well, the UID stays the same, but this dot name on profile changed. Then we will have to give it this UID. So the name could change, for example. Name. Yeah, it's really interesting. I might, yeah, and that's a feeling I got like reading Rust as well. It seems so elegant at its surface, but when you get into real modeling of things, it becomes very complicated. But again, it might be just because I'm used to doing things a certain way. Yeah, it's interesting. But I think I just want to keep going at this and see how will this actually look like when we're done modeling it, and then rather reason about it and don't be so going back and forth during it. Yeah, because then we'll also have like this dispose family subscription, this API on family changed, and then we say this dot, well, we have to check if we actually have a family. If this family, this family.uid, this on family update, oh sorry, this update, well, it should be on family update, and this should be on profile update. Yeah, this should really be. No, we need to bind it to this. So this is a quirk. I like to use bind and not do like inline arrow functions because yeah, I don't have a good reason for it. It's just the way it is. I guess it's the fact that like both of them create instances. Well, actually they don't. So like if I were to do an arrow function here, like that's possible to do. But then it becomes a property. It becomes an instance property where you happen to have a function. While here we are using the prototype and we are basically using it to create a function at this point. It's not attached to anything. It's not like attached to as a property or anything. We're just creating a function at this point in time. And then when we dispose it, we dispose the whole thing. Yeah, that's how I think about it, at least. So this would be family, and this would be iFamily DTO. So we would basically say this family, I guess we can just replace it. I'm a little bit unsure how these observables work. Has it now created a wrapper around this property? I think so. So like the class itself now becomes a proxy. No, it doesn't. Yeah, I'm a little bit unsure how to reason about this, but that's something, I just haven't used it that much. So we'll figure that out. So we also need a way to dispose family subscription on profile changed. There we go. So now what we've basically done now is, yeah, and this is the tricky part. You have to remember to dispose family subscription. You have to remember to dispose all of them. I was thinking that one of the classes here could be a disposable class. What that would allow you to do is to say, if this, what it would do is that this would extends disposable. So basically, if you have a class that needs to subscribe to something, it can extend disposable. And then what you would do here, you would just say this disposable, and then you would say this API on profile changed, And what would happen when this thing gets disposed is that it just goes through the array of things and removes it. And this disposable could even return the actual disposer that it's adding, so that if you wanted to manually dispose it, you can do that, but it will also ensure whenever you dispose the whole thing, it disposes whatever you're subscribing to, which is basically what you want. But anyways, that's an idea for class. Oops. But let's just do it manually for now. What did I do? There we go. Yes. So yeah, we're getting way out of time here now. Maybe, yeah, let's just keep it at this for now and let this sink in. Again, this is a different way. It's a different pattern. It's like it's object oriented, while Overmind is more of a declarative / functional way of doing things, which sometimes is way more straightforward. Like, especially when you use it, it feels way more straightforward. But there is a lack of what should I call it? There's a lack of what is connected. What am I doing here? You think about your whole app as an entity, but here we are actually thinking about a part of the app as an entity, like the profile. So what does like the profile do? Well, it holds profile data. We decided that it also holds your family data. And the logic related to this is to make sure that this instance is kept up to date with whatever happens on the server. So it needs to access the API, where the injection really helps us. So what I mean by that is, if we were going to test this profile, we could inject a mocked API very easily, and then we could fake all this stuff and we could test it. Does it actually update the way we want it to? Which is very interesting. And maybe we can even try that. Anyways, I guess, but maybe the profile is actually done. We're doing what we want to do now. We're creating it. We have to give the API, of course, but then we have what we actually need here. Yeah, I guess that's it. Okay, we'll stop for now. Let me know if you have an experience doing like this kind of programming, object-oriented. And when I say object-oriented, I don't mean like crazy inheritance stuff, but just model yourself. Model stuff in classes, like co-locating state with logic. Like, what's your experience if you have worked with Redux? Do you prefer to have this separation of state and logic? And how do you then deal with effects? Or do you see them as solving different problems? So you like this way of modeling things related to certain problems, and then you like the other declarative / functional way for a separate type of problems, and so on. Anyways, that's it for now. We'll talk more tomorrow. Let's see. Yes. Oh, bye.